A desperate message pulsed through the cold void of space, echoing across the galactic spectrum in 1,000 different languages. It was raw, unencrypted, and urgent, a last, hopeless cry from a species on the edge of extinction. The Trivaxians, a fragile, peace-loving race, were under siege. Their colony, once a beacon of prosperity, now burned under the relentless assault of the Kvak's dominion. Overseer Vrelian stood in the dimly lit command center, his claws trembling as he watched the chaos unfold. His people were dying, their defenses had crumbled, and the Kvak's warships carved through their remaining fleets like a predator toying with its prey. Their soldiers, towering and merciless, flooded the streets, executing civilians with chilling efficiency. Every plea for help had gone unanswered. The galactic empires had remained silent, unwilling to risk their own forces for a species deemed weak. The Trivaxians had no military strength to offer, no resources worth bargaining for, just another civilization destined to fade into history. Vrelian's throat was dry. His advisors urged him to surrender, to throw themselves at the mercy of their attackers. But there was no mercy in the eyes of the Kvaks. There was only hunger. He had one option left, a reckless, desperate act. With a final command, he authorized an unrestricted SOS, broadcasting on every known frequency, in every known tongue, piercing the galaxy's silence with a desperate plea. To any who can hear this, we are the Trivaxians. We are under attack. They are slaughtering us. Please, someone help us. Seconds passed, then minutes. His people continued to die. And then an answer, a single transmission cut through the static. No embellishment, no hesitation. Just 5 words that sent a chill through Vrelian's bones. SOS received. Human fleet en route. The control room fell silent. No one spoke. No one breathed. It was as if the very air had thickened with something heavy, something unspoken. The humans, the Deathworlders, the species whose name alone made entire civilizations shudder. Vrelian's officers exchanged uneasy glances. He could hear the unspoken question in their eyes. Had they just invited something worse? He had heard the stories. Everyone had. Humanity was unlike any other race. Born on a planet that should have never allowed intelligent life, they had clawed their way to dominance through war, adaptation, and sheer stubbornness. Where other species built alliances, they built weapons. Where others sought peace, they prepared for war. They were survivors, predators disguised in soft flesh. And now they were coming. One of his advisors finally found his voice, his mandibles clicking with unease. "Overseer, we must retract the signal. We must." "We cannot," Vrelian whispered. His throat felt tight. "They have already answered." Another voice, sharper, filled with terror. "It is said no one who calls upon the Deathworlders leaves the same, that their aid is never free." Vrelian turned to face the massive screen before them, watching the destruction of his homeworld unfold in real time. Smoke and fire stained the skies, and in the distance, the massive Kvak's warship dominance of 10,000 suns prepared for its final bombardment. It didn't matter. There was no turning back now. All they could do was wait. The Trivaxian sensors picked up the disturbance before their eyes could see it. A ripple in space. A distortion. Something was coming. Something vast. Then, the stars began to vanish. At first, it seemed like a malfunction, as if their instruments had failed, but then the realization struck with bone-deep terror. It wasn't the absence of stars. It was the presence of something massive, something unnatural, blocking the light of distant suns. The human fleet had arrived. Vrelian gripped the edges of his command console, his breath shallow. Trivaxian war analysts had estimated that, at best, the humans would send a small response force, a few ships, enough to deter the Kvaks but not wage all-out war. They were wrong. Before them stretched an onslaught, a wall of war unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Warships of terrifying size, covered in brutal, functional armor. No elegance, no flourish, just the cold, precise machinery of war. At the center of it all loomed the Nyx-class dreadnought, the unyielding silence, a vessel that dwarfed even the largest Kvak's battleships. Vrelian had never seen a ship like it. Few had. Fewer still had lived to describe it. The Cracks, once so confident, now hesitated. Their fleet, which had dominated the Trivaxians with cruel efficiency, seemed suddenly small, outmatched. A desperate transmission crackled through the airwaves. The Cracks' commander, seasoned in cunning, attempted diplomacy. "We did not seek war with the Terran Dominion." His voice slithered through the comms. "We have no quarrel with you. Withdraw, and we will allow you to leave unchallenged." No response. He tried again. "This is unnecessary aggression. Stand down and we will." Still nothing. Then, in eerie synchronization, every human ship rotated into attack formation. The Trivaxian control room was silent, except for the soft, stuttering breaths of those who realized what was about to happen. Then, the stars themselves seemed to die. Every crack sensor went dark. No signals, no readings, no warnings. Human jamming technology had just severed them from the universe. Panic erupted among the enemy fleet. Orders were shouted, countermeasures deployed, but it was useless. They were blind. They were deaf. They were prey. Then came the first strike. A single human railgun round tore through a Cracks battleship at 1/3 the speed of light. It passed through shields, armor, bulkheads, and detonated inside the ship's reactor core. The vessel didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist. The silence was broken by a barrage of firepower so immense that it defied comprehension. The human fleet did not engage in a battle. They executed. Cracks ships detonated in synchronized annihilation. Every strike was calculated, precise. No wasted shots, no missed targets. Each warship died not in the chaos of war, but in the cold, efficient brutality of force that had already won before the first shot was fired. The Cracks attempted to flee. The humans did not allow it. The unyielding silence turned its massive forward cannons toward the Cracks flagship. There was no warning, no demand for surrender, just a single energy surge, then a beam of light brighter than the birth of a star. When the brightness faded, the Cracks flagship was gone. Not shattered, not drifting, gone. Vrelian could only watch. The Trivaxians had called for help. This was a response. A slaughter. A message. The Deathworlders had come, and they would leave no survivors. The battlefield was silent. The once mighty Cracks dominion no longer existed, not as a force, not as a people, not even as an idea. Their ships, their armies, their war machines, all reduced to debris and drifting corpses. The Trivaxians had been saved, but no one felt relief. Vrelian stood frozen, his body refusing to move, his mind struggling to comprehend what had just happened. The humans hadn't fought a battle. They had erased an enemy. Then the human fleet turned. Not away, not back toward their own territory, toward Trivaxian space. A sharp, digital chime rang through the command center. An incoming transmission. From the humans, the screen flickered and a single figure appeared. A woman, clad in a dark Terran uniform. Her face unreadable, her eyes as cold as the void itself. Commander Rena Vasquez. Her voice was calm. Too calm. "Your world is safe," she said. "You are in our debt." Vrelian felt his stomach twist. There it was, the weight of those words, the cost of survival. The rumors had always been whispered in the dark corners of the galaxy. When the humans saved you, they owned you. They didn't conquer in the traditional sense. They didn't plant flags or demand tribute. They simply remained. The weeks that followed only confirmed the Trivaxians' worst fears. The humans did not leave. Warships remained in orbit. For security, they said, human engineers arrived, not just to rebuild, but to reshape. Trivaxian infrastructure was reinforced. Power grids, communication systems, defense platforms, all upgraded to Terran standards. Vrelian's government was offered advisors, human military specialists who would train their soldiers, help them prepare for future conflicts. The humans never issued demands. They never threatened. They never needed to. Every decision made by Trivaxian leadership was now done under the silent weight of the Deathworlder's presence. Every law passed, every treaty signed, done with the understanding that humanity watched. The galaxy understood the message. This was not a rescue. This was an absorption. The Trivaxians were no longer independent. They were under human protection. And no species in the galaxy wanted to be under human protection. Vrelian stood before the Grand Council of Trivax, the weight of his decisions pressing down on him like a collapsing star. He had called for help, and now they lived in the shadow of the Deathworlders. Every attempt to reestablish sovereignty had been met with a polite, measured response from the humans, one that required no threats, no displays of force. The truth was unspoken yet undeniable. Leaving was never an option. The humans didn't occupy planets. They enveloped them. The Trivaxians had no chains, no forced labor, no laws dictated by foreign rulers. But they had something far worse: dependency. Their planetary defenses, now maintained by Terran engineers. Their supply chains, integrated with the Terran logistics network. Their economy, linked to human trade routes. At first, it had seemed like an act of generosity. The humans helped rebuild what the Cracks had destroyed. Their technology strengthened Trivaxian industries. Their medical advancements extended lifespans, cured diseases, and eradicated genetic disorders that had plagued their people for centuries. But slowly, the realization set in. The Trivaxians were no longer in control. Every sector of their society was now intertwined with human infrastructure. Their security, their food supplies, even their access to galactic markets, all facilitated by Terran assistance. And if they ever tried to pull away, well, no one ever had before. Vrelian had studied the histories. He had combed to the records of every species that had ever called for Terran aid. The pattern was always the same. A desperate plea, a devastating human response, a slow, careful integration, and then an unspoken understanding. You do not leave the Deathworlders. Some on the council still believed independence was possible, that, given time, the Trivaxians could reassert themselves and part ways with the humans peacefully. Vrelian knew better. He had spoken to the human diplomats, the military officers, the advisors that now worked alongside Trivaxian leadership. There was no malice in them, no arrogance, no threats, just inevitability. They had seen this play out before. They knew how it ended. One of Vrelian's closest advisors, Counselor Halrex, had been the first to voice what they all feared. "We were not saved," he had whispered after one particularly sobering strategy session. "We were absorbed." The worst part? It was working. Crime rates had plummeted. Trivaxian technology was evolving at an unprecedented rate. Their military, once laughable, now trained alongside human forces. Their ships, once frail and outdated, were now upgraded with human armor, weapons, and shielding. For the first time in history, the Trivaxians were powerful, respected, feared. But at what cost? In the quiet corners of the galaxy, whispers spread like wildfire. The fall of the Cracks was not just a victory. It was a demonstration. The Deathworlders had crushed an empire, absorbed a species, and never once raised their voices. Other empires took note. Ambassadors were sent. Deals were offered. The galactic powers, once wary of the humans, now sought their favor. It was better to stand beside the Terrans than against them. And the Trivaxians? They had become something new, something they never intended to be. They were no longer just another species in the void. They were part of something greater, whether they had chosen it or not.